that is... Oh, there it is. Hold on. It was not... It's working now. Hello and welcome to episode 253 of Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. It is Thursday, August 13th in the evening. My name is Ridiculous Hat. I'm coming at you live from Gadsden, New York. From Karazhan, California, we've got Battlepass.
Yep.
And from Understate, Pennsylvania, we've got Edelweiss.
Hello.
And from wherever you are, listener, we've got you. Thank you so much for being here. We are supported directly by you, the listener. If you'd like to find out how you can support us and receive rewards in return, head to patreon.com/CoinConcede. You can also support us by leaving an iTunes review, totally free and helps other people find the show. Big thanks to our newest patrons, Alan P. and Takei. I'm going to look at this a little closer. Takai. Tikeii. Tiki? Thank you very much for your support. And also, we don't normally do this, but we got a review that I have to read. This is from Hack Mills, and it's 5 stars. It says, listening to Hat say, get 'em with varying levels of intensity when talking about anything remotely aggressive will never get old. 10 out of 10 will recommend. Thank you, Hack Mills. I appreciate it. And don't worry, that's what I've been doing on Ladder this week. But it's not just about me. Host, Edelweiss, you've got a story in the notes. What's up? How's life in Ladder?
Yeah, so life is exciting as always, I suppose. We had a bit of a mishap this week in that my wife got rear-ended. We thought the car would be totaled. Turns out it's not. They're going to be able to fix it, and insurance will cover it and everything. But it was just sort of a series of unfortunate events. Like when I was on my way to try and pick up a rental car on the first day that we needed one, I was like almost there, and then the fender on the back of my scooter snapped off. And the thing about it is it has a light in it, so even though the plastic snapped, because of the wire, it would like dangle there. So I had to do this weird maneuver where I was stepping on it to hold it to the base of the scooter while I rode the rest of the way. And then I finally got to the rental car place thinking I could, pick up the vehicle and put my scooter in the car and drive back. And they didn't actually have a car for us. Somehow there was a miscommunication. Like we were talking with the national office that made promises that the local office couldn't actually deliver on. So there was no car waiting for me, and I had to catch an Uber to a friend's house to borrow one of their cars. It was a mess. But I had a job interview this week, and I think it went okay. But it's always hard to know on those things.
Well, that was a journey for us, but also more specifically for you. So I'm glad you got home eventually.
Yeah, Philly heat is a lot.
The humidity of the Northeast is no joke, especially in the summertime. Well, I'm glad you're all right. How about you, Botticus? How's life in Ladder?
So life is interesting. Got some personal stuff going on that I don't really want to talk about, but it's made playing Hearthstone difficult because I don't know about you two, but this meta seems very, very difficult to play optimally. It seems like there's a lot going on with whatever you want to call as the meta, since apparently it's changing like hour by hour or whatever. So it feels like the meta really strongly punishes you for playing like your C and D game. So I've chosen to not play as much because I don't really enjoy losing when I know that I'm not playing super well. So been kind of just chilling, playing a game here or there. Only thing I really had success with was Druid, actually.
It's a good class right now.
But
if you had to pick one class to play, I think that would be the one.
I've only played 2 games with it, so like I can't really say like it's just like the one, because I had a streak. I started playing right when everybody kind of decided that Libram Paladin was really good, or at least HS replay stats were showing that Libram Paladin was really good. So I picked it up and I went like 7-1, and then I went a hard 0-7 where I got UI'd on turn 3 2 games in a row, which that kind of made me not really want to play a whole lot. But also, like, I realized my heart really wasn't in the games, and so it's really hard to like want to play when you're not thinking about the game too much. So just kind of chilling. Kind of sucks because I think the meta is really cool, and I think that there's a lot of really cool stuff going on. But also, I don't want to let my real life stuff get in the way of me enjoying the game. So I've been doing games that require a little bit less concentration and just kind of press buttons, kind of relax.
PoE.
Yeah, lots of PoE.
Yeah.
The season that they made right now is really good. And I'm kind of glad that I never bought Animal Crossing, because it's kind of like a mix of Animal Crossing with Diablo 3 right now. Or what I assume is Animal Crossing, I like Farmville maybe. I don't know. It's all centered around planting a garden and maintaining your garden. So while killing a lot of enemies. It's weird, but it's a lot of fun, and I've enjoyed learning that game, and hopefully things improve for me and get back into Hearthstone here in a bit, because I think the meta is really cool.
Yeah, well, it's I hope whatever you're working through, man. I hope everything works out okay. Of course, you know that us in the community are here for you, and I feel confident that whatever meta you're missing right now, it will be a different one, even if you were to start playing tomorrow, because it's moving so fast. I took account of how many decks I had played since the expansion came out in the first 3 days. In the first 3 days, I played 38 decks. 38. I haven't counted since then, but the number's gone up. Since this expansion came out, I actually have the stats right here. From Thursday the 6th until today. So I've played, I'm not counting my mobile games because I don't have those tracked, but I've played like 150 games-ish. I have played games with every single class. I have played against every single class. There is no class I have played against that has been more than 16% of my games. And that's Druid at 16%, Priest at 14. No, wait, Rogue's at 17. Rogue's the highest. Then Druid, then Priest, then Mage, then Demon Hunter. But there's a big variety. Smallest to Shaman. There's so much happening. The night we recorded the show last Friday, there was talk in our Discord because people had just discovered Mozaki Polkelt Freeze Mage. And that seemed like it was unbeatable. And it played Polkelt and then froze your board 4 turns in a row, and then killed you in turn 9 with Mozaki, Apprentice, Cram Session, and like go off. About 36 hours after that deck was unplayable. We were playing a different janky Polkelt Mage combo deck that we'll talk about later. But just seeing this kind of organic growth and constant change has been so much fun to be a part of, even though it's exhausting right now. We're going to try and catch everybody up as to where things are going now, but we still don't know. The Vicious Syndicate report just came out today. We all know that changes things. But this is just the start of even more refinement and adjustment. There's so much depth to this meta. Like you said, Bodikus, it's very, very complicated. There's a lot going on. I don't think we're going to know how to play with Mind Render or Lucia until the next set comes out, for example. I don't think we're going to know how to play with that card until the next set comes out, if not longer, because there's already some really funky play patterns going on there. But having a blast, having a really good time, and I'm right outside of top 200 right now, so pretty happy about that. Been playing a whole bunch of stuff. The most recent stream, which I have some videos going up on YouTube, was Miracle Rogue. And don't be fooled. There's no Gadgetzan Auctioneer in the list at 6, but there are 2 Gadgetzan Auctioneers in the list at 1 mana. It's called Secret Passage. Really, really strong card. And also, because it wants to abuse Edwin and Questing Adventure on the coin, and it plays 6 secrets, I keep Preparation in my opening hand. He turned, looking at his monitor where his co-hosts are.
I mean, I don't know what you're trying to tell me here, because I feel like we constantly tell our listeners to not be results oriented, and when I said, "Oh, do the stats show the keeping prep in your opening hand is really good?" Hat's response was, "Well, I'm killing everybody. I'm just beating everybody." So apparently,
that
Hat's
was
results are
that was
saying
not what I
that.
said. What I said is, I'm gonna bleep this. I'm not gonna say what I actually said, but I'm gonna say the stat showed in my win rate was there was a word in the middle there that it started with the letter that you use to pay respects. But I'll let you all figure out what that is. So I'm just saying. Listen,
I'd be interested to see what all of the stats say instead of just Hat stats.
but the thing is, so this is something I was talking about in the Discord the other day. The meta's moving so fast that the only decks that have stats on HS Replay are the outdated ones. Because all the new stuff, it doesn't have 3 days worth of games. So by the time there's 3 days worth of games in a deck, it's already passé. It's
yeah,
moving
but
too fast.
I'm not interested in the stats of your deck. I'm interested in the stats of keeping preparation in your opening hand. Those are the stats I care about. I could
But
I could give a crap about the rest of the stats
it
because
matters
this is what we're
deck,
having a
though,
discussion about.
right? Like, there's going to be some decks where you don't keep prep, and there's going to be some decks where you do keep prep.
Yeah,
And it could be that this is one where you do. I am not as brave as Hat, so I only keep it if I have a questing or an Edwin. Otherwise, I get rid of it.
How is it brave to keep an Innervate?
well, because it's only an innervate
Because
for
sometimes
like
you have
a third
like,
of your cards.
right. Sometimes you have, all your mana stuff and then nothing to actually use it with, right?
And I still don't think it was ever correct in any of the old lists when it was 1.5 innervates, but the things that you were innervating weren't secrets. Like, secrets makes a lot more sense that you would potentially keep prep, and I still don't know that it's correct, especially if you don't have coin in your opening hand, but it's way more likely when you have a card that you can play with that prep. The cards you used to be prepping were like eviscerates.
We play
And
that.
Yes, I mean you still do, but I'm saying in the old decks where you saying you were keeping prep, where you were like prepping out an eviscerate on their face in the early parts of the game, and then if they deal with the Edwin, then you just lose. So like this is a completely different deck. I still don't think it was correct to keep prep in those
It's
old
the
lists.
same deck. It's so all in on Edwin and questing. It's so all in. We'll talk about it. It's fine. It's no big deal. Unfortunately, the stats for the deck that I'm playing are not an HS Replay because it's not outdated yet. And of course, the only deck that I can find that has it in there with Jandis. Prep is the worst card in the mulligan, so I must assume the deck is not built correctly. It's fine. It's no big deal. When the right deck list comes up, I'm certain that result will correct itself. I am fairly confident.
Funny how it doesn't seem like you fully thought this through.
I did think it through. It shows how badly that deck is built. If keeping prep is not good, then the deck must be bad. That's how logic works, Boticus. I won't hear anything to the contrary. So anyways, I'm right outside top 200. Pretty happy about it. I'm also playing another deck that I think is really low-key great. It's APX built Rise of Shadow Cyclone Mage, except we can have it now. And Khadgar works very well with Jandis Barov. It's a very nice interaction. I did go Khadgar Mirror Image Sea Giant into Conjurer's Calling the next turn, and I felt like I was back in the day. Yeah, it was very good against the Paladin I was against, then I played Frost Nova, and then they conceded.
That's disgusting.
It was very good.
Although I will say, how many, crap, I forgot the name of it. What's the 7/8 for 5 mana?
Void Drinker? Earth Elemental.
No, how many Earth Elementals have you got off Jandis?
So
Because the first time I played her, I got an Earth Elemental, and it was good.
Yes.
It was real good.
I got one, but the best card actually that HS Replay revealed us today, and I got this off a Quest Warlock the other day, and it straight up won me the game, is an Ogremancer. It's the 5 mana 3/7 from this set that when your opponent casts a spell, you get a 2/2 with Taunt. And I was against a Quest Warlock.
Oh, yeah.
And I summoned Ogremancer, and then he decided to coin out multiple spells into a Dark Skies. And they gave me 3 extra 2/2s, and then I won that game. You can find that game on my YouTube channel at youtube.com/ridiculoushat. It's one of the 2 games with the Cyclone Mage deck. But also the Rogue video. No, the Rogue video is up today. The Cyclone Mage video is up tomorrow. So check it out. Check it out.
See, I was playing Cyclone Mage for a couple games, and I played against a hunter who just ran that card in their main deck, and I instantly lost.
Ogremancer?
Yeah, just straight up Ogremancer in the deck. I was playing Mage, and I was like, well,
And you were like,
I
nice
can't
ray
kill
of
it.
frost, I guess.
And and I tried to like give them all the 2/2s and then freeze their board a couple turns, and then I just died. So yeah, that card's
There's something there.
was pretty good in like certain decks when you're. It's like it's a very interesting tech card because the stats really aren't too bad on it.
It's a 5-mana 3/7, I think, right? Like, that's not terrible. You're only missing one stat point.
Yeah. It's not too bad, and like it's almost has a Loatheb effect because it's like unless your opponent is already really heavily on board, then they just can't really play spells without, because the 2/2s have taunt. They have
do.
taunt, so
Well,
you can't even get to the 3/7.
Devolving
if you play
Missiles
spells.
is kind of a card. Devolving Missiles is very good against that.
Yeah, and then it triggers first, and then your Devolving Missiles hit the 2/2s.
That could happen.
It happened.
Oh,
They
okay.
had 2 minions in play. One was an Ogremancer, and all 3 Devolving Missiles missed.
Okay, so you got rolled. That's what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
All right.
was not good.
Well, if you're playing against Bodicus, run that Ogremancer. You got to do it. That's the lesson. But yeah, been having a great time on ladder, trying all sorts of stuff. And I was officially back to work for like a trial run today. Felt real weird. It'll be even weirder next week, I think, but I'll get used to it. So streaming is going to be on hold for a second until I figure out what that schedule is going to look like. I will be back to it, but I got to figure out what that looks like. I don't want to try and get back to work for a full week and then stream at night and then just completely burn out. So I'm gonna pace myself. I'm gonna see what goes on there, but yeah, we don't really have a timeline on reopening because New York City is not really big on the movie theater thing right now, which I think is a reasonable decision. And so we'll wait that out and see what happens. But yeah, real life is complicated, but Hearthstone, complicated but more fun. So let's talk about some news items, because we've got a surprising amount of news the week after an expansion came out. Let's hit the road.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
All right. So yeah, as Hat said, got a ton of news, and I believe Edelweiss, you were the one that wished for this. You got your wish.
I'm so happy.
All right. So patch 18.0.1 Hotfix. Cards cannot discover or generate themselves randomly anymore.
And this is a server-side hotfix in the middle of a GM round, which is crazy. Like, in the middle of the round, there were people that were playing when this happened, but they just changed it.
Yeah, and it's like, and obviously Edelweiss isn't the only one that's been calling for this, but it's a pretty big change, but also something I think is going to be welcome among a lot of people. It's like the Discover cards are already very powerful, but just making it so that it's not so, you don't have so much of the Sorcerer's Apprentice playing 1-mana spells that discover the same 1-mana spells, and just kind of very repetitive gameplay where if you don't like the other 2 options, you just go again. Same with Nature Studies, which I played a little bit with, and that card was quite disgusting. But yeah, just cards no longer generate themselves again, which is great. We'll still have the you can still have stuff like Disciple of Galakron can still generate itself, because Disciple of Galakron invokes, which pulls from a pool of cards, a pool of priest cards. So it's not really the same thing as other cards that generate things.
This one is complicated because there are 2 things in play here. One is basically Disciple of Galakron asks Galakron to make it a minion. It doesn't make its own minion. It says, "Hey Gally, can you make me a minion?" And Gally's like, "Sure, little buddy," and just tosses over another Disciple. And that's what happens. But this is actually a moot point because it's pointed out on Twitter. They fixed the bug where you could generate invoke cards. So you can't do that anymore anyway. But if you could, then it would still work. But you can't. For a different reason. I hope that wasn't confusing. So, disciple
me, the main
cannot get a
thing is-
disciple.
For me, the main thing
But
is
it should be able to get
not
disciple.
value that just continues to generate itself, but it's more renew where you're doing something at the same time, right? Like
Yeah.
magic trick into magic trick, giving you extra ticks on something, okay, or getting rerolls. Like I think I'm glad that is gone too, but the main issue where it was like really frustrating was you're playing an aggressive deck and your opponent's just like, renew. Oh, I'll take another renew. Let's do that again. And they do it like 2 or 3 times and they've gained 9. It's just, I would rather them just have to take the Radiance on the first try and be done.
Wait, so they removed the invoke thing again? This is new. This is news to me. When did this happen?
July.
Did this also
That was a
happen
while ago.
recently?
July. Yeah. It was they originally added in they didn't announce this basically any time except on Twitter after the fact. There was a point where you could discover or generate Galakron minions. Like you remember there were a few times where DQA would get you a Fate Weaver or a Sign of Ruin or something. And that was unintended, but notice that your spell lackeys never once ever showed you a praise or a seal fate. You have never seen one of those cards off a spell lackey. And you feel like that it would come up in games a bunch, right? Like you would
I haven't played a lot of Rogue, so I wouldn't
That's
know,
unfortunate. But you could still there were games where you would generate a bunch of Fate Weavers. Like they added it, but then it was only for some classes, and the intention was that it was only going to be for the decks that had Galakron in them. You could only generate invokes and invoke-friendly cards if your deck had Galakron in it. That was bugged the first time. You could generate it if you were in that class period, so they removed them. Then they fixed it so it did actually work with the invokes, but it didn't work with all the classes. You would never see it in Rogue, for example, but you would see it in Priest, and you would see it in I think Shaman could do it, but you would never see it in Rogue. So it was bugged again, and then they disclosed on Twitter, no, we're going to remove this again. They'll all be out. And then they actually did that in July. I think it was 17.4, but it might have been 17.6. I forget. So
I don't know why I don't remember that.
It was
I
never
just thought
fully working.
Okay. I guess that's when I was playing a ton of Priest, so I just thought it was working, and then I've played other stuff since then, so I just assumed it was still working. But either way, you will still be able to do stuff like play a Thought Steal, and if your opponent has a Thought Steal in your deck, it still has a possibility of taking it. And same thing with like Lazul, where you're looking at your opponent's hand. If your opponent only has a Lazul in hand, you can still take it. So you'll still be able to do stuff like that, but it's more talking about cards like Nature Studies, Renew, some of the minions that have the battle cry.
Sky
like
Raider.
the
Sky Raider's a big
Explorers,
one.
Primordial Explorer, stuff like that.
Yeah, because it does work on random generation too. It's not just Discover. So Sky Raider and the Sky Raider will never happen again. And that came up a lot. There weren't all that many pirates. There were like 14 total in the pool. So this makes it more likely, technically, that your Sky Raider is going to get a Risky Skipper, but it makes it completely unlikely that you will ever get a reroll. So be aware of that.
Yeah. So overall, great hotfix. Pretty excited about it. Think it was necessary and probably prevents a lot of, or helps a lot of future design, allows them to design with this in mind now and not have to worry about having multiple discovering the same thing over and over again. We also had a bit of info about the battle pass. So this was something that was kind of brought to life that a lot of people were concerned about, which is essentially a lot of free-to-play model games have been adding these purchasable with money kind of passes that essentially increase the amount of rewards you get from doing like daily quests and stuff like that, or just playing the game. And so Blizzard has kind of seen that obviously a lot of other companies are doing the same thing, and where it was actually, I believe, in a survey that they were putting out asking people their opinions on battle passes and stuff like that, which I believe got a little bit of a negative response, as they said that they might be heading towards something like this in the future for Hearthstone. And recently there was a bit of an interview, a long statement kind of about the expectations for what this battle pass could involve in the future, which hopefully eased a few people's minds on what this actually is going to end up being. So do either of you have like strong opinions on battle passes in general? I didn't really see too much of an issue with it, but I'm interested to hear your two takes on battle passes in general, I guess.
Edelweiss, why don't you go
Edelweiss,
first?
you,
Yeah,
yeah, you
Edelweiss,
go
why
first.
don't you go
Sure.
first?
Yeah, the only game I think that I play that it has this battle pass thing is Magic Arena, and I kind of just always get it because it's really solid value. The way it works is like they have a progression system where you get experience within the game, just by playing the game through quests, and they have daily rewards and things. And you unlock stuff at certain levels just without anything, but you unlock more stuff if you have their battle pass equivalent. And because of the amount that I draft and stuff typically, which might be less with how amazing this Hearthstone expansion is, but usually I'm able to like get the max tier of unlocks, and so it's pretty good value for me to get the battle pass to get all the stuff along the way, because it's like extra packs, extra gems, extra in-game gold. They have two currencies, one that's money, one that's not. So I always feel like I'm getting my value for it, but I recognize that if someone's, I don't know, if you're free to play, you can feel like you're getting locked out of content. I think Magic players, though, are not used to a free to play experience, so it's not not something we really bat an eyelid at. I kind of, it's surprising to me the strong reaction in that Hearthstone has basically been doing the battle pass this whole time, like with Battlegrounds. It's been tied into the pre-purchase bundles, and so I've just kind of gotten it automatically, because I don't think I would get, I would not get a Battlegrounds specific thing, but when it's just included as part of the bundle, I end up with it. I think they're fine. I think people need to exhibit self-control or recognize what they're interested in spending money on. I don't really have an issue with battle passes. It's really common in FGC fighting game community. So,
Well, and we should talk about what the survey said and what the community response was. So the survey that went out, and the last time that Hearthstone did a survey, it was January 2019. There was a lot going on, but the survey was about esports and included things like, would you still play the game if there was no esports league at all? That was a question that was asked. Now, of course, people were concerned by that question because why are you asking that question? If, are we going to do that? Because when they do a survey, they want to collect as much information as possible. So they would, it's extremely likely that they're asking questions to elicit strong responses so they get strong data so then they can act on that, which they have. Now, I'm not going to say that the Hearthstone esports system is perfect. I think that would be inaccurate if I were to say that. But what I'm going to say is surveys are not an indication of intent to do what's in the survey. They are intended to get people's feelings. Now, the rewards breakdown that was sent out in the survey, which was leaked, right? It was from the survey, but it's, you send out a public document, you send out this sort of thing, it's gonna get leaked. The gold numbers were really low, really low, and there were a lot of tiers, including a free tier and a paid tier, where the reward was a pack for the current set. Now, if after we just bought a whole bunch of packs with the most recent set with gold, I bought 100 with gold. 100 packs. And this set would have allowed me to buy 40 packs if I maxed it out. Of course, that's not great. But it's a survey. They're not going to do this. And there were a lot of really negative reactions on the internet to the idea of this being asked. To actually, like, not just the specifics of this system, but challenges were made at the idea of changing it, period. It was a lot of negativity that was being fanned in various forms of social media. You know, people were really passionate about the most recent set. They just bought a bunch of packs with gold, and then they thought that was being taken away. And of course, when you touch a reward system, it's going to cause some kind of strong reaction, right? Because that's how people interact with the game if they don't want to spend money. But it's a survey. And this is the company that gave us duplicate protection for free, without asking, 4 months ago. They just gave it to us, right? They made Hearthstone less expensive for free without warning us 4 months ago. That company is not the one that's going to suddenly say, okay, we're screwing you over. That's not going to work. There's so much more competition these days. And in 2013, Hearthstone was competing with Magic the Gathering. And in 2020, Hearthstone is competing with a lot of games that are a lot more economically generous. I think the example I'll use as to what Hearthstone is trying to do, and a game that is more generous, is Legends of Runeterra. Very generous game. They have quests. The quests do not give you gold, they give you experience. Experience goes to two different places. One, your weekly vault, where at the end of the week, based on how much experience you've gained, you unlock the vault, you get free stuff every week. And two, you get a regional free regional unlocks, which are effectively a battle pass that you choose, and you see all of your quests lined up in order. And as you gain experience, you unlock them, and this is also free stuff. We're talking not like cosmetics, we're talking free packs, free cards, free resources, etc. Same in the weekly vault. Very competitive, very generous. And Hearthstone instead, which we'll talk about in the AMA answer that we have next up, is kind of locked into you have to play Constructed to get most of the rewards. And also, it's just gold, and you can only spend that on arena runs or packs. Or if you scrimp and save and scrounge, you can spend that on a Battlegrounds Tavern Pass, which basically has no rewards except you get 2 extra heroes to choose from, which is not efficient. And if you're playing a lot of Battlegrounds, you already know you're not making a lot of gold from that mode. So there's a lot of half-baked stuff that needs to be fixed. If you convert all the quests from gold to experience, adjust the experience amounts gained from each mode, and you take all of your quests for the entire expansion and you put them in order and you hide them in a screen somewhere, that is a battle pass. That is all it is. It is no different. And all they need to do is make sure that the rewards stay liquid and that they allow us to spend our resources as we see fit. But we already kind of have a battle pass. Now, Edelweiss, you said this about Battlegrounds. I'm going to go one level deeper. Battle passes, a big criticism of them is that they force you to log into the game more regularly to play more in order to get your rewards on time. But what happens now if you log out of Hearthstone for 4 days? You lose a quest. Every time you don't log in and clear your quest every 3 days, you lose currency. We currently have an even more punishing system than the proposed Battle Pass, because if you do not log in every 3 days, you lose resources. A Battle Pass is for an entire expansion. And it's free. There's a free half and a paid half. But if you don't log in every 3 days right now and you don't clear those quests in some kind of constructed format, if you just want to play BGs and you got 3 constructed quests, you're just throwing away money. We already have a system that forces you to log in, and they want to give us something more forgiving and more flexible that works in more game modes. And people were furious. And I didn't get it. I don't get it. So I'm glad that Ben Lee came out in this AMA that we're going to talk about next to clarify. Rant over for now, I suppose. Just
So
have faith in Team 5. Just a little bit of just trust them a little bit. They're doing stuff. Okay, you can go. I'm done. I'm done for now.
So speaking of the AMA, where if you didn't think we were already talking a lot about news in the week just after the expansion, We got a lot of responses to questions that gives us a lot of information, a lot of kind of very I don't. Well, let's just get into it. So, I mean, we could probably spend the entire episode talking about the first, quote unquote, the first bullet point, as I will say, because Hat and I had a discussion about the first bullet point earlier. But so they are evaluating all of the basic and classic for a full revamp, and something big is happening with the next rotation. This is also why they're not replacing the 5 cards that got Hall of Famed this year. So I think that all of us were under the assumption that, as with Priest, where they kind of did a rework with Priest, we would have another class this year that would get reworked, and then they would kind of do it one class at a time. Maybe they do 2 a year or something like that. But it looks like they are going to be completely, well, it sounds like almost a complete overhaul of Classic and Basic coming up with rotation. So we have one more expansion for the year, and then we're going to have another rotation, and who knows what they're going to do. But this is big. This is potentially a lot of stuff.
The exact phrasing. We're currently looking at the Basic and Classic set in its entirety. Hearthstone has changed a lot in the last 6 years, and we're researching what a more modern take on Basic and Classic looks like. That's fantastic.
What does a more modern take on Classic and Basic look like? What are they referring to there?
Class
Because I
identity,
wouldn't,
right?
I wouldn't, I wouldn't consider, like, I mean, I guess Magic the Gathering has a fairly modern take on Classic and Basic in like a core set where you have kind of a couple cards that are the same, but they also sometimes add in new stuff to that every once in a while. But I don't know that that's the example they're thinking of. What do we think they mean by that?
This could be rotating cards. This could be. I believe that they will do something that we are not expecting. I'm wondering if there will be a Basic and Classic. I'm wondering if they just make expansions bigger.
Huh.
Like I don't
see.
and that's not
I'm
based on anything. That's not based on it. Like I'm not drawing that from anything.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I've kept thinking about this, but I don't believe that they've ever reprinted a card with the exact same text as any other card.
No.
I think that every single card has one small thing that's different about it.
Or it might have the exact same text, but like the name wouldn't be the same thing.
No, I
or like
don't
the way
think I don't think that any card is identical to another one. I'm pretty
right.
sure.
Not 100%. I think like the
You have
closest
like,
would be something like Dwarven Sharpshooter to Steam Weedle Sniper, right?
well, no, that's like 1 mana to 2 mana. I'm talking like the closest thing I think is it Wolpertanger is the one that makes a copy of itself.
And yeah, there's Alley Cat.
And then there's Alley Cat, but Alley Cat makes a Tabby Cat, which is a
Correct.
different card, whereas Wolpertanger
yeah,
makes a
yeah.
Wolpertanger,
Yeah.
which is the same card.
The
So like,
closest is
there's
probably
cards that do the exact.
is probably Mecharoo and Possessed Villager. Are one makes
But
a
Mecharoo's a mech, and
Right.
Possessed Villager is
blank.
not. It's classless, right? It's not
Classless,
a
yep.
demon, right?
Yep. Those are the small things, right? And same with Mermy, which is reborn instead of Death Rattle, and it's a Murloc instead of not being a Murloc. But yeah, there are cards that are functionally similar, but you're right. I don't think there is ever a basically exact reprint. I don't think they've ever done it.
Which is interesting because that's something that Magic did a lot, is reprint a 2 mana 2/2 that's the same as another 2 mana 2/2, same tags and everything. But Hearthstone literally has never been able to make a card the exact same as another card.
In Classic, Donkey points this out in chat. Holy Smite and Arcane Shot used to be the same, and then they changed one. But they were identical.
Right.
It was both 1 mana deal 2 damage.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's true.
But then they changed it. So now we're correct. And it wasn't really a reprint if you make them both at the same time, now is it?
So just the way they're wording it, I get the impression that it's more like they're going to do all the classes reworked at once rather than, I don't know, something dramatically different. That's just me. I don't know.
Yeah, it's
I'd be surprised if they added like a core set or something.
it's impossible to tell because they're clearly what we know in the basic and classic set is clearly not going to be a thing. But does that mean new basic and classic? Does that mean core set, like you talked about? Does this mean larger expansion and no core set? It could mean anything, except Bentley said there were exciting plans, and they aren't yet ready to discuss the details. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it should be very interesting. So the second bullet point kind of goes back to what we were just talking about. The bullet point says the battle pass isn't going to suck. Specifically, the quote says, "We are grateful to our players for their continued support, and as described above, we have worked hard to try to value their time and financial investment fairly. We have no intentions of going back on or undermining the progress we have made on that front. By the statement above, I very specifically mean to identify and clarify that we absolutely intend to maintain the value that players can earn with the same game and keep flexible of purchases that current rewards provide."
That's from Bentley,
They
the
do
game
not-
director.
Yeah, they do not want to upset the player base. They just want to the period. They don't want to do, like, they are going to do stuff that will upset the player base. That happens every time a new set comes out. Every time they make an announcement, someone gets upset. But it is not going to be their intention to make a new system that makes it so that the large portion of their player base is going to want to stop playing the game because they feel like their time isn't valued. Period.
They're not EA
They're just
games.
not going to do that.
Yeah. Well, and if you charge someone $80 one time or $10 10 times, you make more money off the $10 10 times. They're fighting in a crowded marketplace and trying to be more relevant and more modern, and it's better to make more people happier over a longer period of time and focus on long-term engagement, which JL and Brack has said in investor calls, that's what Hearthstone is doing right now, is focusing on long-term engagement. And you see that with a lot of the moves they're making, and this is just really in line with what Team 5 has been doing. So I'm not surprised. I am grateful for the clarification. He wrote a much, much, much longer answer than this quote, and the whole AMA is awesome. You should check it out, but I appreciate the clarification here.
And past that, basically they're looking into the Scholomance meta and paying attention to the play patterns that are coming forth with the meta. And I will happily announce that it is likely, well, actually, no, it's already been a week. So they have not nerfed anything in the first week. So I was wrong, thankfully. Thankfully, I was wrong. And nothing was so incredibly broken that they needed to nerf it. Makes me happy. But they're constantly monitoring it to see if they end up needing to make any tweaks.
Steve in the chat would like to point out they did nerf renew, so your point is incorrect.
Oh, does that mean I'm right? Do I win?
Priest mains are never right.
That's not what we meant.
No.
Also, isn't this?
I feel like Hat's
It's
gonna
technically
win,
week
which I'm
2.
fine with.
When did the hotfix come out?
An
The
hour ago.
hotfix came out. Okay, yeah, so it came
Wait, it's
out.
live?
So it's week 2.
I don't see the patch there.
It's a server-side patch. That's
What
why.
is that?
That means
It
that
means
you don't have to
to
do
download
anything. Yeah. It
Yeah.
means that when you're in the client, then things are different.
Okay.
So that means
But it
Edelweiss is
said
right.
18.0.1, and I'm not on that.
It's a server-side fit. You won't see it because it's not.
Okay.
It's not for you. It's for the server.
Okay.
It's not an Edelweiss side patch. It's a server-side patch. Anyways, I don't know if that counts.
Side note, I can't help but impose the German W on everything. So I say Wolpertinger, and it like weirds me out when everyone says it with a W sound, which I know is messed up, but
I mean, it honestly sounds like you're probably right. If you've ever heard me try to pronounce anything, it's kind of apparent that I'm not very
well,
good at that.
no, but like they wouldn't on the English version of the game spell it with a W if they wanted it to be a V sound.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And you also have
Maybe.
to ask yourself the question, how many tings would a Wolpertinger ting if a Wolpertinger could ting tings? You have to ask yourself that.
Do we though?
You have to ask.
Moving
So,
on.
they have no current plans to do something like Doom in the Tombs in the future, but if they were to do something like that again, they would more actively balance it, thankfully.
Yeah.
So no more Shaman Evolve meta for, what was it, 2 months?
2
We
months?
had it for like 2 months.
Actually, no. It
Ugh.
was 1 month of Evolve Shaman and 1 month of Hearthstone Battlegrounds. It was 2 different metas.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That was actually that second meta was pretty good. I
Yeah.
liked that meta. Let's see. Dual class cards are rad, but they don't have any more plans to make them right now. Basically, don't expect the next set to have more dual class cards. Which is probably fairly apparent because they would have said if they were doing another year like they did where all of the sets kind of coincided, which I kind of miss. I kind of wish they were still doing that. That was a good year, I think.
Oh, with like the story stuff, yeah.
It's hard to design like that over and over, though.
Yeah.
Well, Hearthstone doesn't really have a lot of unique characters that can carry a year like that. They kind of went all out because it's doing like the super team sort of thing when your game's only been out for 5-6 years. That's pretty tough. They pulled it off. It was great, but like that's definitely tough.
Yeah, and of note, they're also looking to kind of revert some of the nerfed cards that get moved to wild whenever they rotate out to wild, just to kind of breathe new life into some of those cards that got nerfed because they were too powerful in standard, but because wild has so much crazy stuff going on, maybe they'll be okay over there. Any cards specifically that either you would like to see get reverted?
I have one in mind, but I'm not sure I want to say it. The Caverns Below.
Oh no, we agreed on that.
Yeah,
liked
it'd probably
that
be
deck.
fine, honestly.
Yeah, probably wouldn't even be good.
Do you want it all the way back? Which
All
version?
No,
the
yeah,
way
the
back.
OG,
all the way back.
the 4 minions 5/5. I want 4 minions 5/5.
Ooh,
That quest would get done like that.
man, that would be.
Do you know how good that would be with Penflinger?
Oh.
Edelweiss is gonna have to go like make paper Hearthstone now, so she can play with this deck.
Oh man, I just want.
We have cockatrice for that.
Yeah, it's true.
I just want to bounce some glacial shards back to my hand.
That'd be
Those
cool.
were the good days. Those were the good old days. I hate you. Looks like they are going to be working on multiple new game modes. I think we kind of figured this was happening, but I mean, they've kind of started to tease what the next one's going to be, but looks like there's going to be a bunch of them coming up. Arena is meant to be kept in a stable place. They will give it rotations back with the next expansion, but buckets were not really working out super well for what they were intending to do. Unfortunate. Hopefully they figure out Arena.
Stable is not a great word if you're an Arena player, because stable means boring. And I don't remember Arena players being super not bored. They were the opposite of not bored. They were bored. They are bored. Nothing happens in Arena.
Well, yeah, that's why all of the really, really good Arena players just instantly became Battlegrounds players. Pretty much.
Yeah.
And then there's just like a bunch more stuff in this article. You should really check it out. We have a link to kind of a summary of all the major points in the show notes if you're looking for more information. But also, they added a bunch of information about Battleground stuff. Hat, I'm actually going to throw this one over to you, if you don't mind.
Did you read that first bullet point? I put that there for you. So, I'm cashing it in. If any of you are listening with children, this is your warning. So, they said that Nat Pagle and Tidres are going to be reworked because they're bullshit. They didn't exactly say that. I'm paraphrasing a little bit here. I believe the exact phrasing was that players were dying from high life totals out of nowhere. But I said what we were all thinking. I will bleep that in the show. I've marked it down. But I have been on the delete Nat Pagle train for a while, and it sounds like they're at least like partially formatting Nat Pagle, and that's fine. So I am glad that they are being adjusted and reworked. Balance changes are coming. Eudora was called out by name. Seasonal resets are coming. Details will be revealed. My theory is that this is also probably tied in to the battleground, the battle pass, and the rewards rework and the progression. That most likely, my theory here, this is not based on anything, is that Battlegrounds Ladder is coming. So prepare yourself for Battlegrounds Ladder. Probably going to be a thing. And Murlocs are going to see large-scale adjustment because they're not happy that they are so frequently a percentage of first-place games and feel like the only correct thing to do. And also, beasts have room for more interesting strategies and have gaps in their curve now that Golden is at 6. There will be balance changes in the coming weeks. That's from Cora Songbird, who is one of the developers on the Battlegrounds team. You may know her from being good at everything. So, pretty excited that they are dealing with a lot of the things. I like that. Oh, yes, and also, Steve points out in chat, Cora also started this podcast. It's true. So, yeah.
All good things start with Cora.
Yeah.
And lastly, there were some random packs being given out over the weekend. That was not intended, and it was because Twitch drops were being enabled on accident. So some people might have got random packs, which who doesn't want a random pack every once in a while? That's pretty cool. People getting rewarded for watching Twitch content. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
They should accidentally enable Twitch drops more often, I think.
Also,
And not tell anybody. Or tell everybody. I don't really care either way. And that's the news. That was a lot of news, but we got through it, and we still have a lot to talk about in Decksplanations. But first of all, we always have to get into tournaments.
Which I definitely did not update in OBS. We're just going to copy and paste this over here. I did not even put the news up on the screen. I'm just bad at this. It's okay. We're talking. We're talking. That's fine. Boom.
It's the grand tournament!
Grandmasters just started. And by just started, I mean, all right, so as a reminder, the first 3 weeks of Grandmasters is Swiss to cut to a top 8. So what that means, the first 2 days that the players play is going to be off stream. This is on Wednesday and Thursday. They're playing just to see who's top 8, and then those are the matches that are revealed on stream, are casted on stream. So the format for that changes every week. Think of these as mini tournaments that are running 5-day mini tournaments that are running 3 weeks in a row. This week's tournament, the cast starts tomorrow. Conquest with 1 ban, the standard format, the normal format. Week 2, it is Last Hero Standing instead of Conquest. Week 3 is Specialist, best of 3. Just so I say that again, Week 3 of Grandmasters this season is Specialist. I did not see this coming. But the good news is, we know the Druid nerfs will be done by then, because there's no way that they are going to stream that much Druid, or, more accurately, that many Priest mirrors, because they'll be countering Druid. And
I was just like, oh, we don't have Control Warrior. It'll be fine. Oh, Priest Mirrors.
Yeah. And for those of you that are not as familiar with these formats, I should clarify a little bit. Conquest means you have to win with all of your decks. Once you win with all of them, once you win with a deck, you can't play it anymore. So you bring 4 decks, you ban one from your opponent bans one of yours, you have 3 decks left, you have to win with each of them once. Last hero standing, same thing, you bring 4 decks, you ban one, your opponent bans one, you have 3 decks left. When you lose with a deck, you can't play it anymore, and after you lose with all of your decks, you lose. So you're trying to kind of knock each other's decks out, sort of thing. Specialists. How do I explain Specialist? Specialist is a format from a troubled time known as the start of the new Hearthstone esports system, where it was intended to simplify the viewing and playing experience, make the format more accessible. You only bring 1 deck. You have 1 deck that you start with. Then you have 2 preset versions of it that you can switch into after game 1 that are 5 cards different. They're kind of preset, right? So you can take, like, say you take a Druid, and you could take out the Kael'thas and the Survivals and put in Malygos in 1 package, right? You can put in Malygos, and you can put in Forest Warden Omu, and a Germination, and 2 swipes. And then you have a different build that's better against aggro that puts in some Claws and some Pounces or whatever, right? Puts in lower curve stuff. So if you know Magic, it's like a preset sideboard package. And that's what this was intended to do, and it was around for 2 full expansions, and it was garbage. It was absolutely terrible. It was all, like, really boring mirror matches, or just a format dominated by a single deck, or just kind of a rotating rock, paper, scissors format that involved a lot of control mirrors. It never made for a really compelling viewer experience, and it just kind of felt wrong for Hearthstone. So we're trying it out because the Week 3 format last time was also not great. That was the bring a deck for each class, and then you kind of do the massive, like, 6-deck ban thing. And that was also a little funky. They'd never done that format before or since, I guess. But I'm surprised they landed on Specialist, not like Shielded Conquest, which was a little bit more mainstream. But this is going to be interesting to see. I don't know.
Shielded Conquest was good, wasn't it?
It was.
Didn't we like that format?
We liked it. The players didn't.
It was interesting.
The players didn't, because you couldn't target, right? You can't target, because in Conquest, you kind of bully 1 deck. You ban your bad matchup, and then you build 4 decks that all beat one other thing. In Shielded Conquest, you can't do that, so you just bring 4 ladder decks, and that was kind of sketchy. But the GMs were pretty vocal in their dislike of the Bring 10 format, even though we got to see different classes. They just weren't powerful enough or weren't complete enough, and there wasn't enough prep time for it to be really effective, so it ended up just being a bunch of Hunger Crabs and Evolve shenanigans and Shaman. And so Specialist is probably more skill testing. I'm curious to see how it plays out, but if there's a meta for it, it's probably this one.
And also, like, with Specialist, I feel like the audience really didn't like it, but the players did. I feel like maybe not all of them, but a good percentage, when they said that Specialist was going away, at least like 30% of them were like, I actually really like Specialist, and I feel like we were starting to get the hang of it, and it was actually a really skill testing format. So
there was some upside to it. There was some.
Maybe they, like, surveyed the Grandmasters. I mean, that'd be good if they surveyed all the Grandmasters and they're like, hey, we want to do 3 formats. What 3 formats would you want to play? And they came back with Specialist as being the 3rd most popular. Then, I mean, I think I'm happy, despite it being a worse maybe viewer experience. I think I'm happy if the players are more happy to play it, because it means they're going to care a lot more. And I think you can get a lot more hype around players who are excited to play a format than players who aren't really excited to play a format. And then you just have, like, some people that are kind of interested, but then they see players don't really like it, so it's not as interesting. I don't know.
It depends. Specialist made for the viewing experience to be a little samey, and I don't think that'll happen this time, but the first time we had it, it was Deathstalker Rexar mid-range Hunter Mirrors, which is about as much fun as that sounds. And then when we first got Rise of Shadows, it was remember that first tournament where 13 of the 16 players brought Rogue, and it was just waggle pick mirrors all day long, and Firebat tweeted, "These Rogue mirrors are eroding my soul." It was
Wasn't there also an Elysiana period of time?
Oh,
where
yes,
it was a bunch
where
of, where
the
it was a few
strategy-
Elysiana mirrors?
The strategy back when Elysiana was 8 was you sideboard in 2 Baleful Bankers and 2 Youthful Brewmasters, and you just Elysiana 5 times. It was troubled. It was a troubled format, and I'm glad that they didn't stick with it because Demon Hunter and Ashes would have been something. And I don't know. I'm curious to see it return for exactly 1 week. For precisely 1 week, and then it can go do something else. So, then after that, after those 3 weeks, those 3 mini tournaments, then we do round robin, that's all standard conquest, and everybody plays everybody based on their divisions, and then we do the complicated division sorting procedure, and then there's a weirdo play-in, and the funky graphics with the little waterfalls, and we'll talk about all that when it gets here, but I'm not going to give you all the details now, because we've already given you a lot of details, and you don't need more. Basically, if you go to the YouTube Hearthstone esports channel this weekend, Grandmasters will be playing Hearthstone in the new format, and it'll be cool, and you should go watch it. That is where I'm going to land, and we'll be doing this for the next 3 weekends. It'll be a different format this weekend, next weekend, the weekend after that. And then following that, there will be 4 weeks of Conquest also on Hearthstone YouTube. So, worth checking out. The decks this season look really cool, and there's a lot of stuff going on, and the meta is absolutely not figured out even a little bit. If there was a season to watch of Grandmasters to see players at the top of their game in an untested meta, it would be this weekend. So, check it out. The YouTube Hearthstone Esports channel. It's youtube.com/Hearthstone Esports. And in addition to that, we had a week of qualifiers correlating with the first week of events. Guess what was good in the qualifiers? Starts with a D.
Without looking at the show notes, I looked at the show notes. It's Druid.
It is Druid. Congratulations. But
And
also Priest, and also Enrage Warrior, and also Paladin. Though overall, in terms of deck win rate, Highlander Priest had a global 57% win rate week 1, which is bonkers, insano, nutso. Druid was actually second at 55%. Galakron Stealth Robe was third. Pure Paladin was fourth. Galakron Warlock was fifth. But keep in mind, the first qualifier was 8 hours after the expansion launched. Things have changed over the course of the weekend. The first 3 qualifiers, you may remember from last Friday, were won by the same 90 cards. The last winning lineup of the weekend. Are you ready for this one? Face Hunter, Cyclone Mage, Gibberling Token Spell Druid.
What?
Gibberling Token Spell Druid. Just so I'm clear, I picked up
It's
this
just
deck.
Turbo Druid, right?
It has Glowfly Swarm, Fungal Fortune, and Glowfly Swarm, but also it has Gibberling. But it has a very low minion count. The only minion in the deck there are 5 minions in the deck. There are 2 Gibberlings, 2 Voracious Readers, and 1 Violet Teacher. It is a very strange deck list. I would not recommend playing this on the ladder. But I did play it on the ladder. I went 50-50, but the win was against Admirable, and I high-rolled his face off by going Nature Studies into turn 2 Fungal Fortune, into turn 3 Bloom Swarm, into turn 4 Power of the Wild, and turn 5 Second Swarm, into turn 6 Soul of the Forest, and he conceded. So, be aware that you can do that, but also I would not recommend playing the deck, but this targeted Paladin and Druid very well. So, well done, Molino, on that super cool lineup, and it shows the evolution of the format over time. We're just getting started here, so there will be more coming, but we're not going to spend too much time on these lineups because we don't know what's going on. Now, Edelweiss, I see that you updated Supergirl Gamer here. What happened in Supergirl Gamer week number 5?
Well, Nyada and I got scrubbed out round 1. But Revi placed very well again. She got second, and Lymphesis, who eliminated me in the first round, ended up winning the whole thing this week. So, it continues to be fun for me. It's nice to have just a weekly competitive event for me to play in. There are 4 more of these remaining. I think I still have a good shot at making the top 8, which I realized after reading the rules, there is language to say if they can't do an in-person event in San Diego, then we'll do it online. So I'm guessing it's going to be an online top 8, which is better than having to fly.
I think that is a safe assumption, and yes. yeah, congrats to Linthesis and nice job, Brevi. And I'm sure that you and Naso will do much better next week. Now, ladder is, we're going to talk about this extensively, but the most important thing I can say is the Vicious Syndicate Data Report 170 is in the show notes. You should go read it. I can try and summarize this, but it is a massive novel of a report. It took Zacho 22 hours to put it together, and the set came out 7 days ago, and it was done on Wednesday. And he also had to play it to get a feel for it. So tons of work went into this. I cannot tell you how much. It is definitely worth going to check out and seeing what's happening. There are a lot of meta predictions in here. There's a lot of list refinement going on. There's a ton. And so you should go read it. It is if you want to be more informed about Standard right now, I'm not going to try and synthesize this for you. Go read it. But our Decksplanations is about Standard. So let's talk about it.
So, there is a lot of movement going on in this meta. Last time we recorded, the set had only been out for a day, and so much has happened. So we're going to, with some very broad strokes, go over everything. We talked about this a bit in tournaments, but some overall coverage. Druid definitely defines the meta. It is not the best deck, but it's tests that you always have to be able to pass. And sometimes they're just going to get you, because if they go turn 3 or turn 4, guardian animals, that's going to be pretty difficult to beat.
So
Paladins, very.
I have some strategy for beating Druid. Just point this out. I figured out something that was pretty important about beating Druid. Is that they went turn 3 guardian animals on me, and I would concede. I stopped conceding, and I know this sounds crazy, but I did win more games. It's okay. I know this sounds really stupid, but the impulse when your opponent goes turn 3 UI, as you called it, Botticus, is that like, okay, I can't come back. But then it would kill the Twilight Runner, and they would be overloaded, and I would put pressure on them, and they would die. I won a game with Pure Paladin where my opponent went turn 3 GA, turn 7 GA, and I killed them because I didn't concede. But there were a bunch of games where I did concede. I would just start my turn. I'd be like, well, clearly there's no way I can win. And then I gave up. Can't win those games. So I know it sounds really like it sounds like I'm memeing. I promise I'm not memeing. Don't scoop those games and see what happens. The overload on Lightning Bloom matters so much more than you think. So much more than you think.
Yeah, definitely. If you can clear the runner, I think that's the most important thing, because you have to deny the card draw in order to win those games. If they get more than the initial 2 cards, it's going to be much more difficult. Definitely, if they don't get the runner, you have a real shot, because then they're not drawing any cards. But that's definitely a key thing to look out for. I shouldn't say that they auto win when they GA early.
They have to manual win.
Yeah, it's tricky. Freeze Mage felt broken on Friday night with Polkelt. The deck was unplayable by Sunday. And then I think everyone experienced Turtle Mage. That is sort of new Shutterwalk, but for Mage. And the way that it works is it's the Tortolan 8 mana 5/5 that casts a copy of a spell from your deck. Very important that it's copy. What you're going to be casting is Potion of Illusion pretty much as soon as you can cast that and not die. And what that gives you is a 1 mana Tortolan Pilgrim that you can just keep playing to get Potion of Illusions for 1 mana Tortolan Pilgrims, and then your only other spells in the deck are Frost Nova and Blizzard. So you run other minions that you can get back with Potion of Illusion alongside the Tortolan Pilgrim. And you just freeze your opponent's board every turn and slowly kill them with Nightblade. There have been some variations. Someone suggested adding desert obelisks so that when you want to kill them faster, you get 3 of those in play. Each of them deals 5 damage. I think the consensus is like that's cool, but that's still more of a meme because Nightblade is going to be more consistent. It's very flexible in terms of its tech cards, which you're able to do every turn, right? So you can Boom Pistol Bully, you can Cult Neophyte, sort of whatever you're going to need. And eventually you'll get there with that 3 damage from Nightblade. It is important that you be able to clear your board and take some turns off. One thing you could include for that is the 6 mana, 6/3 demon. It's like sheer
Scavenging Shavara. It's pretty bad,
Scavenging
though.
Shavara.
You usually don't want to run
Yeah,
that.
it's pretty bad. But like, you can do that so that you can clear your own board. Usually it just means you like take a turn off or something of doing the combo. It's very, very difficult to play. A lot of streamers have been doing it, calling it 5-head mage or whatever. I would not recommend crafting anything to play this deck because it's kind of a lot, but it can be fun to experiment with. It is, I think, the best use of Sphere of Sapience I've seen because it takes the most advantage of it, right? In order to keep comboing off, you have to make sure that you do not draw your Potion of Illusion or too many of your freezes, right? So that you can keep having access to those spells in the deck. Because if you draw both Potion of Illusion, it just stops working. It's also why you need to not run the Mage Prime, because if you shuffle in Solarian Prime, that's going to reshuffle your deck and reorder it after Polkelt, which if you have played Polkelt and already put a Potion of Illusion to the bottom, you know that it's on the bottom of your deck. But if you shuffle in a Prime, you don't know the order of your deck anymore. Very, very complicated. It's a lot of fun, but I don't know if that's going to keep being a thing. There's a lot of more consistent mages out there in terms of tempo mage, I think. Sorry, go ahead, Hat.
It's fun the way that like a really hard puzzle is fun. In that, like, there's a game called Baba Is You. I don't know if either of you have played it. It's a really like mind-bending puzzle game. Really enjoyable for about 30 or 40 minutes, and then I start getting this really bad headache, and then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do something else now. And that's one game for Turtle Mage quite frequently. If it's a priest, it is longer than that. And Mind Render Lucia is a complicated card to play around when your hand is full of 1 mana Tortolans and they get your deck. So yeah, it's this deck is kind of everything I love and hate about Hearthstone, and it's mostly love. It's a super janky deck with a ridiculous combo, and it looks like a pile of garbage, and it's really, really difficult to play. And watching Ego Waffle and Eddie co-op this when they were both trying to learn the deck on Sunday was one of my favorite streams ever. But also the deck is built on freezing your board every single turn for the rest of the game, and that's not a great play pattern. But they can easily nerf it if it's ever good, because they just make Tortolan cast the spell from your deck and not a copy of the spell, and then the deck is deleted forever. And also, if you ever want to beat this deck, you can play Flick Sky Shiv. That's a good one. You can play Living Dragon Breath, which does unfreeze your minions and allow them to attack. And also, it's worth noting, I'm sorry that you have to hear this, both co-hosts, because you may not know this. In Wild, it is better because you don't run Blizzard, you run Ice Block.
Yeah.
And you cast Ice Block every turn, and you kill your opponent not with Nightblade, but with Meteorologist, the 6 mana 3/3 that shoots a missile for every card in your hand, and you can do that multiple times a turn, up to like 60-ish damage. It's pretty gross. So
yeah, you also have Cloud Prince.
A Meteorologist is more damage,
Fireball.
though.
If they have no board, yeah.
They won't if you play 10 Meteorologists. Their board is not going to be a thing, I promise. But yeah, but you can play Cloud Prince too.
You can't play that many Meteorologists. You only have 7 spaces on your board, and one of those is taken up by a Tortolan.
Well, you can play it the previous turn and then attack with 3. You can play Animated Broomstick, by the way, which is in some of the versions of the deck, and then you give all your minions rush so you can trade. And a friend of mine, Nick T. Jones, was experimenting with Magic Carpet. So you just charge him, you just get him in.
You get him.
Yes. Okay, you get it. That's a lot of meteorologist pings. It's a lot of pings. So, anyways, the deck is not something that you should play on ladder, or like probably ever. But it's fun that it exists, and if it's ever good, they'll nerf it into smithereens. They might do that anyways,
Yeah.
because it's a silly combo that involves your board being frozen every single turn.
I played it a little bit, and my first game with it, I was up against a commencement warrior, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was definitely taking way too long to kill them. And I actually screwed up and like played out all my Tortolans without having any in hand anymore. And the warrior just conceded because they didn't want to play that game anymore. It was going on way, way too long since they were gaining armor and such.
You want to hear what they sounded like after the game?
Yeah, I almost killed my way through all of the Rattlegore from casting Blizzard.
That's a lot of Rattlegore. That's a lot of Rattlegore.
lot of Rattlegore.
Yeah.
But that brings us to Priest, which is one of the best classes in the game. I think discussing with my teammates, actually the best class in the game. It just sort of can do everything. It with Wave of Apathy and the new 4-mana 2/6 taunt that steals something. Do you have the card name
Cabal
for me?
Acolyte.
Cabal Acolyte, yeah. Initially, there was like he would run Wave of Apathy, double Lazul Scheme, double Cabal Acolyte, and then double Shadow Priest. My understanding is they're not necessarily running Shadow Priest anymore. But yeah, Yoink Priest was a thing. It's, in my mind, the most infuriating play pattern ever, because I hate dying to my own cards. But yeah, Priest is quite strong just in terms of their ability to clear the board and steal some of your stuff. Most of them in qualifiers, I believe, are either Highlander or Dragons. I think all of them use Dragons. The Dragons are quite strong at this point. And Mindrender is an excellent tech card. So,
And it might be more than that, because there was
might be more than that.
Mindrender is a
Sometimes.
card. We'll talk about it when we talk about specific cards. But there was just kind of this wave of pro opinion of like, it's busted. It's really hard to use. It's very specific. Oh, it's really busted. And I don't know where we are right now, but there was a big discussion today about nerfing that card. Thino posted a picture that says he hoped they changed it so that it gave your charge minions +1 attack. I don't know if it. I don't think it needs that kind of treatment, but it's getting better as people are getting better with it by a lot.
It's definitely one of the more frustrating cards to play against. But sometimes people screw up with it, although, like you said, that's happening less often. So Rogue is going a whole lot of face, but it can also mid-range and also Miracle. And as we were saying with the prep discussion, prep is really good now that you're doing 2-mana secrets, right? When for a while we weren't playing so much prep because we couldn't do 3-mana. You'll notice Fan of Knives is like not seeing play in the last year and a half or so because you can't prep Fan of Knives. But now that we can prep secrets, and secrets can do some pretty sweet things, this strange sort of Miracle Rogue is having a really great time. You go off with Questing and Edwin and Plagiarize. That is a hell of a card. I got a turn where my Druid opponent played Mount Cellar into a whole bunch of stuff, and then I cleared like just enough on my turn 6 to be safe with like an Eviscerate and something else, and then on my turn 7 I just did all the nonsense back to them, and it was glorious. So really like Plagiarize in that deck. But the face variants are quite strong. The 2-mana 3/1 stealth that gives you another 3/1 stealth, just that gives you a whole lot of opportunity to go face. It ends up just using stealth as this way of making sure you guarantee face damage. So if your opponent doesn't have good ways of clearing stealth minions, you just get this guaranteed damage. Really builds up over time. I've been seeing some decks also run Wolf Rider now, so they're really all in with just Secret Passage and Voracious Reader.
Wolf Rider,
Demon
really?
Hunter. Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of Wolf Riders. Not just in my games, but in like streamers' games. They'll be playing against Rogue.
Seems excessive.
It does seem excessive, but I don't know. Maybe it's good. Demon Hunter definitely is being underplayed. It's still pretty good, but there's a lot of variance. Demon Companion is a very solid addition, and our buddy Hockey Boys has thrown Pokelt into the list to make Skull even better. You can guarantee that you get a reduced Altruist, which is kind of disgusting because Altruist still goes face. So if you were feeling bad that your altruists weren't doing enough damage, fear no more. Now you can guarantee Polkelt will give you Skull, and then you'll draw another Skull, and you can hit altruists. And as long as you can live long enough to play both Skulls, you'll probably altruist your opponent out of the game. I think there are some cards that we're not seeing a ton of, but are quite strong. The 1-mana weapon, True Aim, is pretty good, if only just because a 1-mana weapon in Demon Hunter is solid, right? Like Light's Justice would be pretty decent in Demon Hunter.
I mean, 4 durability is the big thing, I think.
Yeah, it's a big
4 is a
deal.
lot of
it
durability.
gives you a ton of activation, so when you don't have the Minute of Hero power, just being able to get on curve of our Satyr Overseer or the Adept is pretty sweet. And the Soul Fragments are also quite strong. I myself have been working on a Control Demon Hunter with Soul Fragments, and it feels pretty good. People are doing mid-range things. 3-mana Duskbreaker, hilarious.
How about Ace Hunter? Is that seeing a lot of play in the Demon Hunter lists? Or not
Ace
really?
Hunter, I think it's always feeling like it's just not worth the card slot. It feels like a filler support card in the end. I don't know. Like, you would think it would be amazing with that weapon, and maybe at some point it will be, because you would get to go face with your whole team and then swing the weapon at something, and they all hit in. And as long as, I guess it's not a positioning, it's like a play order thing, right? You'll get your minions to attack in before Ace Hunter, and they'll all be immune.
I'm more
There's-
thinking of it as a thing if minions are really popular, and if there's less AoE removal, I think Ace Hunter is really good. Like, if you're playing against pure
Yeah.
Paladin, I assume Ace Hunter is like insane because they never get to stick a board of stuff. But if you're
It sort of
playing
feels
against
like a tech
priest,
card.
yeah,
It's
Yeah, it may
like,
not even be
it's
support, it might be
fine.
tech.
It's fine, but you have to want to trade a lot, and the True Aim thing is cool at first until they trade with all your minions that you played before Kreen, or they kill your Kreen. It's still a 3-mana 2/4. So a 3-mana 2/4 is you have to trade with your minions multiple times and have them live where they would have died. It's good against Paladin, but you don't need help. And as Demon Hunter being good against Paladin, there are better cards you can play there. So it feels like a 3-mana 2/4. And Demon Hunter lists these days are so tight that most of them are not running Satyr Overseer anymore. And if you don't have room for Satyr Overseer, then you don't have room for Kreen.
Right.
that's true. I did not realize people were not playing that card because that card
Yeah.
was really good.
And
I think Hat,
go ahead.
you said it before, right? That Demon Hunter and Hunter both really want to be going face more than trading, and Ace Hunter Kreen encourages trading, so not really great for what you want to be doing as those decks.
Yeah, it's True Aim. I think there's something there, and McBannerface was playing a list of DH that did pretty well for me a few days back. But the list that's done the best for me, I pasted the updated version in the show notes, has been Hockey Boys Low Curve Demon Hunter. That it really goes heavy on 1s and 2s. Does not play anything at the 3-mana slot, and the 4-mana slot is Polkelt, Marrow Slicer, Cane Sun Fury, and Altruist. And the top is 2 Skulls. You don't play Glavebend Adept either, because you want to make sure the top of your deck, whenever you play Polkelt, is Skull, maybe a Marrow Slicer, Cane, Altruist. And so if you play Polk on 4, you Skull on 6, and you always draw Marrow Slicer, Cane, Altruist. And then you win the game because all those cards cost 1 mana. And I've played it a bit, and it's been surprisingly consistent and extremely powerful.
I have yet to try it, but that does sound amazing.
Draw Polkelt. You'll be fine.
Usually the decks that Polkelt is in, that's the main thing you want to do is draw Polkelt.
I actually think that he's on my personal list for a card that will be nerfed before the expansion is out. Not the effect,
I could see that.
but at a 4-mana 4/5, it's not really a big stat compromise. And that effect being in a janky combo deck at 5 mana, fine. But it being an on-curve tempo play feels weird to me. It doesn't make me feel great. And making Skull of Gul'dan better is just not something that we need to do in this game. We don't need to find a way to optimize that card.
It must always remain -3 mana cost.
Yeah.
So we have here also that Hunter is good if boring. Same with Warrior, although there are some big Warrior decks running around. I don't know. For me, I feel like I've mostly been seeing big Warrior. And I guess Bomb Warrior now. Someone posted a Bomb Warrior list.
Casey's running it.
Bomb Warrior bombs seem really good if you're playing against a bunch of Polkelts, because when they play Polkelt and then you attack with your weapon, then all of a sudden all of a sudden their Polkelt did nothing, but it's still I guess it's still a 4/5 for 4, so it still lives to the through the weapon.
Quest Warlock still seems fine. Galakron Warlock doing okay. Both of them got some number of soul fragments. I was tinkering around with a Quest Warlock with the soul fragments. Interesting thing about them is whenever you draw one, it actually advances your quest more quickly because of the cast win drawn effect. So I'm not running all of them. I'm not running the Jailer, but it is kind of cool that you can get that increased quest advancement through the soul fragments, just because of cast when drawn. Dark Glare Zoo feels like a combo deck now with Raised Dead and Flesh Giant, and Hat has here that Shaman sucks, but I'm going to I don't know, put my 2 cents here, which is that I think Quest Shaman is great, and people don't play it enough. I don't know why. I'm guessing that the stats just say Shaman sucks because people are playing a lot of Trick Totems and getting wrecked, or they're playing a spell damage Shaman, and that is like okay, but not amazing. Everyone that I've shared the Quest Shaman list has said good things, so
Are they still playing
I feel
it?
like that deck is solid.
Everyone.
Okay, well, Bot is exceptionally unlucky.
True.
Are they all still playing it?
Also, I've updated the list.
I believe that you're enjoying it. I have faith that your win rate does not align with the stats.
Yeah, just like Hat's win rate when he keeps prep in his opening hand doesn't align with the stats.
The stats are not on the website, Boticus. They have to prepare those stats. I am certain that when the right deck is there, prep will be at the top, because if it's not at the top, it's not the right deck. There you go. Science. It's science. That's all that is. So, we've talked about decks. Talked about the meta. Why don't we talk about some cards? This is not Got It or Goofed It, but this is cards that, like, may have had a gameplay impact that we weren't anticipating. Because there's some juicy ones here.
Wave of Apathy. Why did they give Priest Frost Nova?
Frost Nova. Yep.
Why? I no longer like playing Priest. I literally played against this card like 4 times, and I'm already like, well, I guess I'm never playing Priest again because this sucks. Playing against this sucks, and I know that playing with it is also going to suck. So
it's really good with Cabal Acolyte. But okay, so I want to talk about.
It's also just good against a lot of decks. It's just like a really good card, and it's really frustrating to play against.
And there was a play that I saw on Steve's stream today, where his hand was about empty, and so he went, but he was ahead on board, wave Elucia, give you my empty hand, pass.
Oh.
And then and then his opponent did nothing and died. Because all of their minions were tiny and they had no cards because Steve spent all of his cards.
That's very rude.
It was really, really good. Really, really good. And that's just the kind of thing. And you can do that with Elucia, but also like Wave is actually a Frost Nova.
Yeah.
I mean, I played a game earlier where I was playing Druid and I had a bunch of giant dragons on the field, and then they played Wave twice in a row, and I mean they still died, but I was also miserable because I was just like, my cards don't do anything, and I'm probably going to lose this game. And I got pretty lucky to win this game because they didn't draw an out, but it was still like, oh man. Well, I do not enjoy playing against Freeze Mage, and now the Priest can play Freeze Mage-esque. I am not a fan. And I definitely overlooked this card. I kind of looked at the card and I was like, this is kind of an interesting effect that could be good, and that's not even remotely close. I think you just play this card in the majority of priests, if not all priest lists, because it's just that powerful.
Yeah, there were a few priest cards that surprised me. Elucia, we can talk about Elucia for a while. I'm gonna say that
Put that last.
well, like, so we just talked about the cool Elucia play. There was one other one that I learned about from watching priest players. The ideal play in the mirror is you Elucia and you play 6 mana worth of their stuff, and then you play their Elucia and give them their hand back. So that way they can't disrupt you. So Elucia has a lot of uses, right? It's not just a dirty rat, because you can also use theirs against them and just swap back, and that way they get their hand back minus all the cards you took out of it and minus their Elucia. And then, like we just talked about, if your hand is low on resources but you have the board, going Wave Elucia is filthy. It's like giving your opponent an empty hand has a lot of value. So, yeah, there's a lot there. But I kind of want to talk about Raised Dead if we're talking about priest cards that really overperformed. Because I did not think that card was going to be good, and it's great. It's really, really strong.
It's
Yeah,
almost...
I think.
Go ahead.
I was going to say the way it's strong in Priest is very different than the way it's strong in Zoo, right? In Zoo, it's much more as an activator for your cares about your life total changing cards. Whereas in Priest, it can be that, but it's also just your minions usually in Priest right now are pretty value. And so you can do a lot more targeting in terms of what you want to bring back. And that's really powerful.
It's just like a 0 mana arcane intellect that costs you 3 life, right?
I saw a priest player against me, turn 1 Disciple, turn 2 Zephyrus, and then they raised deaded those 2 minions back, and then I lost the game. Like, what do you do about that? What do you do when your opponent just gets back a Zephyrus and a second invoke? The raised dead Disciple interaction is really, really powerful. Just guaranteeing that second invoke. But Highlander Priest is really strong because they're getting Zephs back. It's silly.
Yeah, getting back cards that you purposefully put in your deck is good. You want to do that. Because if you're putting it in your deck, you probably want another copy of it.
It sounds so simple when you say it.
Particularly in a Highlander list.
Yeah.
It's also really good early with Priest because you can actually get that healing. Because sometimes in the early game, Priest doesn't take a lot of damage, and it's you lose by taking chunks in the mid and late game. But just like taking a little bit of damage early, getting back a couple valuable minions, and then having the opportunity to heal that up.
Wash in the chat is
Quite
saying his opponent last night went Tempo Sethic on 2, Tempo Sethic on 3, raised dead, double Sethic. Like, it's, I don't know, these all just sound gross. These all just sound kind of insane. It's a really good card. Also, by the way, in Warlock, actually, we can do kind of a live reaction here. I'll paste this in the chat too if I can. So this is in Wild, right? And I understand that Wild is kind of a different place. But I had quite a turn with Dark Glare and double raised dead in Wild. So I'm pasting to my co-host right now. It's a hand with Dark Glare, Double Raised Dead, a Molten Giant, and a Soulfire in it. And then I'm going to post the after picture, and I'll describe this out loud to you. This is the same turn 4, where I ended up with Double Flame Imp, Vulgar Homunculus, Dark Glare, Flesh Giant, Molten Giant, and Void Walker Caller, the 1/3 taunt in play. Now
Void Walker.
Yeah, I went from
And
23 to
3
7.
unused mana.
And I was at I couldn't spend all my mana because I had Soul Fired my last card away. And yes, it is 9 Eyebrows Warlock. I added 22 power worth of stats to the board at the cost of 16 of my own life. For any of you that have ever played Magic the Gathering, this is known as Death Shadow. We're doing it in Hearthstone now. It feels broken because each of those Raised Deads was getting me back Flame Imp and Vulgar Homunculus. So each Raised Dead was gaining me 3 mana. Right, because the Raised Dead is -2, the Flame Imp is -1, and the Homunculus is free. It was something. It was alright. So, yeah. Really good in Warlock. You can do that in Standard too. You don't get Molten Giant that's probably good. You probably don't want Molten Giant in Standard. But, yeah, it's a really strong card. We kind of touched on Elucia already. I don't know. We're going to be figuring out this card for a while, right?
Yeah, I don't think we need to talk more about it right now.
Yeah.
We can talk about it if they change it or don't change it, and what that means.
But so you said you've been working on Control Demon Hunter. Why don't we talk about this card that it was obviously insane, and then we both played with it and we're both like, it's crazy.
Yeah, so Shard Shatter Mystic. Destroy a soul fragment in your deck to deal 3 damage to all other minions. It's 3 mana Duskbreaker, right? There's plenty of ways to add soul fragments into your deck. So this card is really insane, particularly for a demon hunter whose focus is to clear the board and go face. It fits in extremely perfectly. And demon hunter control has generally functioned in this sort of, you clear their board while doing a whole bunch of face damage, right? Where it's you power up your attack a bunch and blade dance to clear so that you can go face with all the attack damage. And Shatter Shard Mystic just falls into that perfectly, as does the Soul Shard Lapidary, which is a 5/5 that gives you 5 attack for the turn. Now that is not in my control list, but it is in the more mid-range lists. And both of them feel extremely powerful.
Yeah. The Warlock payoffs haven't felt quite as crazy to me, but Shard Shatter Mystic, every time I play it, I'm like, this card was insane at 4 mana. Why does this cost 3? Why does this cost 3? And it's really, really good. If you played with Duskbreaker, you know, right? That's not a surprise. But
I would say it's a much bigger drawback than Duskbreaker had. The having to play cards that put soul shards in your deck is much more difficult than just having dragons that can be in your hand, but not that much higher.
It's a pool that's not going to get bigger. I recognize that. But it's not. Once it's active, you can play out your dragons, right? Equivalents. Once you play your soul fragment cards, as long as you don't draw a soul fragment, which there was one time where I was playing the Warlock where I went Soul Shear on 2 with the 3-drop on 3, and then I top decked both soul fragments in a 26 card deck, and I couldn't play my 3/4. That was something. And it happens sometimes, but you don't have to hold the dragons. There's that time where if you play the Twilight Whelp on 1, then your dragons are off. Your Drakop is offline on 5. You don't have to worry about that quite the same way. But also, it's 1 mana cheaper. It's also it's really good with Magtheridon, because for 7 mana you make a 12/12. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I should probably put that back in.
Yeah.
Forgot about that.
And
Unless they have 5 minions in play.
That's true. And then you just play Shard Shatter Mystic because it's Duskbreaker and they have 5 minions in play and you're fine. I don't know. And if they have 5 giant minions in play, then you go Soul Shard Lapidary with your Marrow Slicer up and then you Blade Dance for 9. Fine. Whatever.
Yeah, Blade Dance got a lot better with Marrow Slicer.
And with Lapidary. With Lapidary, it's really good.
I haven't used it with Lapidary, but I believe that it's very good. It's also great with Headmaster Kel'Thuzad. I love that play when you've got a Marrow Slicer up, and you can just go Kel'Thuzad, Blade Dance, steal 3 things. That's a fun play.
Yeah. KT's all right. He's funky to use, but I was watching Racy's stream the other night, and it was a Priest Mirror, and his opponent, who was playing Highlander Priest, went Headmaster Kel'Thuzad Shadowward Ruin, and that was all right. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one.
Ray
Yeah.
kept trying to tell us in chat that he was not getting dunked on, but he did in fact get dunked on. But then he won that game because he dunked back. I forget how he did it, but it happened. Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of Moarg plus Cycle of Hatred. That's a fun one.
All right, that's a new Edelweiss specific thing. That's definitely not a thing that's happening in ladder. Listener, don't think that's a real thing. That's a thing that happens when your opponent
Okay.
has Reno.
So I've built a control deck basically around having 4 copies of Moarg Artificer because you philosophy for extra Moargs, and then you get to use them with things like Cycle of Hatred. And it's great fun.
Please put that in the show notes. Please immediately put that in the show notes. I would very much like to see this deck and or possibly play it later.
It maybe needs a Magtheridon. I sort of forgot about that one. But
yeah. Well, while you're looking up that code,
I'm sure you can find room. I'm sure you can find room.
Yeah, probably cut one philosophy.
But that's the point of the deck. So anyways, while you're looking up that code, why don't we talk about my favorite card in the set? Why don't we talk about it? Have y'all met my friend Jandis Barov? She goes by J-Bar. And also what she does is, well, Bot, do you know what this is for 5 mana? It's like a Dragon's Pack. It's a pile
I mean,
of statistics.
yeah, it's a lot of stats.
But also, like, this is something that I think it's gonna sound like hyperbole, and I think I might have said this last week, but I'm really even more sure of it now. This is just the original Dr. Boom level of stats per mana. If you can put this card in your deck, if you are in these classes, you should just do it. Corbett is playing this in his Wild Odd Rogue. Because at 5 mana, it's just such a crazy amount of stats for no work. You don't have to invoke like you did with Dragon's Pack. You don't have to have a dragon in your hand like you did with Draconid Operative. You don't have to. It doesn't even have combo. You just play it for 5 mana. And
yeah, you don't have to do anything. It's just kind of like a giggling inventor almost.
It is. Except sometimes the taunts are a 7/8, and other times it's a convincing infiltrator. And sometimes it's a Totem Goliath,
yeah.
And other times it's a Waxadread, and other times a Sandhoof Waterbearer. It's just like you list all these cards.
Yeah, the 5s are insane.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's an Amber Watcher, and you're like, that's still a lot of stats.
Yeah. It's just, you don't have to work for it. It's just free. And sometimes also you have a Witchy Lackey, or sometimes, we're going to talk about this other card later, but I will point out that another card that we all underrated, Animated Broomstick, very good with Jandis Barov. Extremely good with Jandis Barov. So...
Also, sometimes don't you have a Shadow Step?
Or a Conjurer's Calling. Like, it's good with cards and mana, so just play it if you have either of those. If you have mana or cards, just play it. Also good with Khadgar in the Cyclone Mage. Because that's 4 5-drops. Or just play it on curve and don't play it with any other extra cards, and then it's still awesome. I expect there will be a point in the future where this is not nerfed because it enables a strategy. This is nerfed because it is the first card you put in your deck if it is in these 2 classes, and you do not think about it once it's in there.
Maybe they'll make it 7 mana.
Maybe 6, maybe make it summon 4-drops, I don't know. But I am at the point where if you are playing an aggro rogue deck and your curve stops at 3, just put in J-Bar. just put it in the deck. And also, it looks fantastic in Golden. And I haven't made it in Golden yet, but I'm really tempted to make it in Golden.
Ooh.
But I did spend some of my
Yeah.
dust on Golden Wisps this past week, so I have to scrounge and save up a little bit.
I actually have been dusting my Goldens because I actually feel like I need almost every legendary in this set because they all do such unique things and all of them feel, fringe, like really good. Like Speaker Gidra in the Druids, Lord Barov in Warrior and Paladin. I don't know. There's several that I don't have that I feel like I need. I think the only one that I'm not sort of waiting until I can make is the hunter that gives your spells poisonous.
You
But
probably don't need that card.
yeah, probably not that one. But I don't know. It's just felt like there's so many legendaries that I want with this set, and so I dusted my golden dragon hoof because I did have a regular one.
Kronks?
Yeah, I felt bad about that. But
I hope we get to the point where Kronks is not played. I would love if it. Well, I kind of do. It's complicated.
Weren't some priest players cutting it?
They were, and Vicious Syndicate was like, that's wrong. But they were cutting it, and they were also cutting Murazond, and I definitely... I don't know about Murazond, but I think that not playing Kronks is a mistake.
Yeah, I could definitely see cutting Murazond, but also it kind of dunks on some people.
And also, the priests are now playing Animated Broomstick, and Murazond with Animated Broomstick, also very good.
Animated Broomstick is probably just a card we should talk about, because...
Let's do that right now.
It's
Let's do that
low-key
right
one of
now.
the best cards in the set.
I was so
It's
wrong
real
about this
good.
card. I was so wrong about it. I argued with so many people about this in Discord, and I was like, well, why don't we just play Rocket Og Merchant right now? First of all, this is way better than that. It has base rush and gives
Oh my
all your minions
goodness.
rush. Second of all, we probably should have been playing Rocket Og Merchant. This card is so good. I bet we should have been doing it.
Oh, yeah. No, I definitely think we should have. I had been using Rocket Og Merchant in like some totem shamans to give things rush because when you summon copies of things that you've given rush, they also have rush. But this card is just so flexible, right? You run it in Druid and it gets buffed, so it is a large rush in and of itself, and you can give your things rush that normally wouldn't, such as after a big turn with Exotic Mount Seller, for instance, or some of the drawback of the Ysera portals is that you can't use them right away necessarily. Well, 1 mana Animated Broomstick, now you can use the team to clear some things that would have killed you otherwise. And then in, I think it was GLE's Libram Paladin, he has Animated Broomstick because rush with Libram of Wisdom is fantastic, right?
Or
You get
Libram
to
of Hope or Wisdom?
Wisdom, the one where you...
Oh, yeah, so you
I
make a
mean,
big board and
Hope
then...
is cool, but
You make a big board and then you go boop boop and then you trade and then you go boop boop and then you trade and then you go and you just
Right,
keep booping down the
exactly.
line. You just...
because it's basically a board-wide buff if you're trading, right? Since there's 0 mana, you just put it onto whatever you're going to kill off, and then you rinse, repeat. So Animated Broomstick is fantastic there. It just has worked its way into so many lists because board-wide rush for 1 mana is pretty nuts. Like Rocket Boots in Warriors, 2 mana, draw a card, give something rush, right? This is so much better than that.
Yeah, I was really wrong about this. Beef Squatch, Matt IMD, I argued with you in Discord. You were right, I was wrong. Saying it right here.
You know what card I was pretty wrong about?
Was that?
Evolving Missiles.
Join the club, buddy.
Man, that card did not look that impressive, even when I thought about devolving a specific card. But this is like a silence, and also just like
Someone on
it's
Twitter
just
was
really
calling
good.
it 1 mana triple polymorph, and like,
yeah,
kinda yes, kind of accurate. This card might make Paladin not tier 1, like just this card.
yeah.
It's
almost like Arcane Missiles if all the Arcane Missiles always killed the minions when they were in play. but like
when you put
not
it that
quite.
way, they kill it
It's
enough.
basically, yeah, because it always just feels like it always makes everything 1/1s and 2/2s. They have boards of relatively large things that all of a sudden become 1/1s and 2/2s.
Yeah. It's this gets in line with my wave of apathy I missed on 1 mana split cards that completely dominate the board. Yeah, I thought that this was worse than Earthshock. I said that in my set review. I said this is worse than Earthshock.
Ooh.
In retrospect, that is inaccurate. That is not a true statement. That is a false statement. Nobody's playing Earthshock or Shaman. But this card is great in Mage and in Rogue. It's great in
Look,
both
now
classes
I
where
have
it's
to
legal.
jam another 50 games of Quest Shaman just to spite you.
It's you're only spiting your own win rate.
Did you just say Rogue?
I
It's
did.
a Shaman card.
No, this is a Mage and Rogue card because the other card that we're going to talk about right now, which I was also pretty wrong about, is Wand Thief. So, have you ever killed your opponent by Wand Thiefing, getting a Pyroblast? They're a priest. Top decking a Secret Passage, playing the Pyroblast. And by the way, the hand of Pyroblast and Secret Passage is very entertaining to look at because it's just like damage and then a promise of future damage right next to it. So I Pyroblasted, and then a Secret Passage, and got a second Wand Thief, and got a second Pyroblast, and the next turn my priest opponent died. And I imagine they were fairly upset about the situation. The pool of mage spells is good. I don't know. I don't know how to talk about this card without sounding stupid. Because
Hey,
it just is.
have you ever gotten a let me see the name of the card, a potion of illusion off of a wand thief when you're playing rogue after you just got a Togwaggle wand?
Who? What? I gotta turn my fan up.
Lackey, coin, Togwaggle, get wand, already have potion of illusion in hand, so you just go wand, draw 3 cards that all cost 0, one of which is an Edwin that you get another 0, or you get a 1 mana Edwin for the next turn. And then
Did the Tog survive? Did you get another Tog?
No, what happened is my opponent then next turn played a Murazond in a wave of apathy and I died.
I was not prepared for any part of this story. That was the twist ending right there. The call was coming from inside the house.
This is the thing. I feel like all the cool stories now end with, oh yeah, but my opponent was playing priest and I died.
I mean, they also got to play a Togwaggle's wand and a potion of illusion, which also, by the way, got them the Murazond too, in case they
needed a backup. No, they could play it again. Yeah,
they needed a backup Murazond. So I didn't have a great week in Hearthstone, guys.
Okay. Objectively, that was a fantastic game. I'm sorry that you had to be the losing party, but the 3 of us combined, it's net positive joy over that game.
True, very true.
So we appreciate that, and I will say, chat says you had us in the first half. Not gonna lie, I agree with that statement. I assume that you were gonna crush your opponent there. That twist ending, that's content. That's hashtag content right there.
There was a crushing involved.
Yeah, that was. You know what I bet you sounded like after that game, Bodigus? Yes, I'm going to keep doing that.
Rattlegore is seeing play.
Didn't I call this card too? I want to say I said this card was going to see play, and it's extremely good against priest.
Yeah,
unless they steal it, I guess they could steal it.
And the troublemakers.
When they soul mirror it, it's a little funky. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you still get priority on pretty much all because you're probably going face and they're trying to remove it.
I would
assume
put Apotheosis on it.
Oh yeah, well.
Yeah.
It's Apotheosis on a Rattlegore, quite strong. I will say I forget who I was watching. It might have also been Ray C, where we were facing an Enrage Warrior that looked like a totally normal Enrage Warrior, and then they played Rattlegore, and then they Bloodsworned it after putting Shield of Honor on it,
Oh.
and it was very difficult to address.
Ooh.
Yeah. So this card is more annoying to deal with because you're used to looking at this stat stick and saying, well, it's not that good. But if you're the warrior and you're controlling the board into it, and especially if they play Troublemaker in turn 8, which is another amazing card, really, really strong card, you probably didn't have much of a board, and then trying to fight back while a Rattlegore is bashing you for 9, kind of not going to happen. And then also trying to trade into the Rattlegore is really not going to happen because it's Rattlegores all the way down. Like there's just there's more gores where that came from. So you just kind of have to be ahead or have Devolving Missiles or Ray of Frost. You have to be a mage or a rogue because those are mage and rogue cards.
Or a shaman.
What class is that? I don't understand. Devolving Missiles is a
Also,
mage
by
and
the
rogue
way,
card.
Shield of Honor. I should have seen that card because that's just a 1-mana rampage.
Yeah. Except it's better if you have to trade because 3 health is not as good as a bubble.
Yeah.
There's
It's also better against a lot of removal stuff.
Yeah, there's not more to say about that, but it's just
That card is just like solid.
Yeah. But also
a lot of solid cards.
I want to specifically bring up there was a Reddit post that said that Rattlegore, the voice should go up, like the tone of the voice should get higher as he gets smaller. So I did some pitch shifting.
That would be great.
So this is what a 5/5 Rattlegore sounds like. And then here's the 1/1 Rattlegore. He's so little.
Oh,
He's
amazing.
So little. So Blizzard, you can put that in the game. Feel free to do that. Yeah. Now we talked about Troublemaker. We talked about Shield of Honor. There's another really good warrior card. Really, really good warrior card. Have y'all played with the Spellcleave weapon with Reaper Scythe?
I
Yep.
played against it and it's destroyed me.
Yeah.
Destroyed me. Just like that effect is so good, which is why everybody ended up putting the that 5-drop beast in addition to like all the beasts, Lake Thrasher. Both of
Yep.
those effects are just like super, super good against anybody who's trying to play more than 2 minions.
I don't even care about the spell burst. This is just easier to play than Arcanite Reaper and Pirate Warrior.
Yeah. Very good with Corsair Cash. So Wyrer this past week posted a Galakron Warrior.
Ooh. I'm
And
interested.
Galakron invokes with a cleave weapon. That's a lot of damage. That's a lot of
Yeah, it
damage.
is.
Now I will note
Whoa.
invokes do not make cutting class cheaper because cutting class cares about your weapon attack and not your character's attack. But this card is like Reaper Scythe has been incredible every time I've played with it, and let me tell you, it's great to play with Scion of Ruin again because that card is also Loco Bananas, and also we run Athletic Studies, which is the 1-mana spell that makes your next rush minion cheaper, and you get 3 mana Scion again. Which I will remind everyone, you might have forgotten, that was the mana cost when it was printed. That Scion of Ruin cost 3 mana, and in retrospect, that was dumb. It was stupid. It should have cost more. So I'm glad they fixed it.
Yeah. Considering we were going Scion, Dragon Breeder, Barkeeper, get a whole bunch of Scions back to hand.
Barista, yeah.
Barista Lynch. Oh, I missed that card. Is that in your Quest Shaman deck? Do we have room
It is
for Barista?
not because I just
Is
killed
that even
them.
in Standard?
It is. It's in Rise.
It is in Standard. Yeah.
Can we put it in your deck even though it's worse?
I mean, yeah, you can do it. Initially with the deck, I think I might have had Barista and Geppetto, but it doesn't matter when you just double Cumulo on 10 and kill them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much all the studies seem like they're relatively playable. Like some of them are not really seeing play.
Not the Hunter one.
Carrion and Demonic, not so much.
Yeah.
But the other ones are all pretty playable, it seems.
Spell damage one is better than I thought because the spell damage minion pool is small and relevant, especially if you're in mage. Because the mage ones are good. It's too bad they didn't give this card to another class. But
Well, also it's really good with Cram's session.
it is. Yes,
which a lot
Edelweiss,
of
I'm
mages are
memeing.
playing.
I know that you were considering Shaman another class. I'm choosing not to do that this time. How do we replace a host and they both are the Shaman mains? How does that happen?
I don't know. I've always loved Shaman. I think ever since Goya Shaman.
It's
Basically, once it stopped being meta, I started playing Shaman.
which has been most of the time.
Yeah, a lot of the time.
Poor Shaman. Well, and we talked about our next card on the list was Polcup. We kind of talked about him a little bit. He's just kind of enabling a lot of things in a bunch of different classes, and they're all questionably good. But it seems like the best uses right now are more like aggro tempo stuff. But I kind of want to talk about a pair of cards that seemed really strong and didn't end up working out quite the way that we anticipated. Not that they're bad, but that they're not what we anticipated. And that's Voracious Reader and Glide. And these cards, everyone was really high on these. And Voracious Reader is like,
I mean,
kind of see in play. It's fine, but it's not a
yeah, that's what I
6.
was gonna say. Is that like both of these cards are much worse than our initial impressions? Well, maybe not much worse, but they're definitely worse, I think, than my initial impressions of them. But Voracious Reader, I think you still play. There's still decks where it belongs in, and you're still gonna have that as a card. But it's definitely not the level to which when I realized exactly that this card was Jeeves, but way cheaper. It's not. Well, it is, but I think it kind of goes to show just. I feel like the format's more powerful than it used to be back when Jeeves was really, really good. I don't know. Is that the reason?
I hadn't played with Jeeves in a while, and playing with Reader, even when I drew 3, I was reminded why Jeeves looked really powerful and was necessary but wasn't as strong, because getting the cards after you can play them sucks. So much of the card draw we're used to now, you play the card draw spell, then you get the card draw, then you play the card. Look at Secret Passage, right? If Secret Passage says, at the end of your turn, put 5 cards in your hand, at the start of your next turn, you get to play them. Voracious Reader means if you can't play at the same turn that you do other stuff, and then refill your hand, as a top deck, it can draw you 3 cards, but then your turn is gone, because it's a 2-mana 1/3 pass. Not having the cards the same turn is such a huge drawback that we haven't played with this effect in a while. It's easy to forget how awkward it is, and it's really awkward and very easy for your opponent to kill, and you don't get the resources she generates to protect her. So you have to be able to protect her proactively, or you have to be willing to play her earlier, which is usually the right play, and get 1 or 2 cards off of it here or there, which means it's not going to drive your deck building quite the same way.
Yeah,
I mean, that's largely how I was playing her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Draw 1, draw 2. It's still pretty good.
It's fine.
I do see Demon Hunters every now and again. Like, they'll run it out with Beaming Sidekick, empty their hand, and like, when I think there's gonna be those perfect draws with a card like this, right? Where they just have this huge board, they play it, and they've emptied their hand. But that's just not gonna happen every time. And oh dear, when you have 2 Voracious Readers in hand, and you need to like play out both of them and try and have an empty hand, it's really difficult. And those games feel kind of awful.
Yeah. 2-mana 1/3 sucks, and it needs to be worth it. And if it lives for multiple turns, then it's great, but that's not dependable. And if you can't depend on it, it's hard to build your deck around it. And if it's hard to build your deck around it, that means you have to add more higher cost cards, which makes a Reader worse, which makes it more compelling to cut Reader. And that's what's happening in Rogue specifically. Reader in Rogue is a trap. And that's the thing that I think stood out the most, that you can't just Ultra Turbo with Rogue. I tried that a couple games, but you would rather play Cutting Class, you would rather play Greyheart Sage, and we were already playing Double Secret Passage, which is as good as advertised. That card's bananas.
Yeah,
So
I think
it's almost like we were wrong about some cards and we were right about some other ones when we're talking about them for the set review. That's interesting. I don't think that's ever happened before.
But also, what I love about this episode and this meta is that our Decksplanations was a bunch of cool game stories. That is all our Decksplanations was. It was the guise of strategy, but really we're just talking about how cool this meta is. How long has it been since we've had a meta this diverse and this interesting and this unsettled a weekend?
Saviors?
Has that happened before?
It's either Saviors or Ungoro, right?
Or Ungoro, yeah.
We're
Oh,
in
yeah.
contention with those two metas. And
Which is a great spot to be.
it's
Yeah.
Alec Dawson
Definitely
middle
fun memories.
sets, though. Alec Dawson middle sets are always amazing. But the craziness of this is the first time, I think, where every class feels kind of powerful, except Shaman. And that's... And Shaman, even on day one, was fun. And like the Quest Shaman thing, Quest Shaman is really cool. I've seen people play it, and there's so many game actions to take, and you can do a bunch of damage and spell damage Shaman if you get it going. It's fun. But every class feels like it's got a lot of ability to swing the game back and forth, and a lot of power, and there's a lot to do, and you can play a lot of combo decks, and a lot of control decks, and a lot of aggro decks. And this is in the information age, because Ungoro, HS Replay was not the front page of Hearthstone back then. It was Vicious Syndicate was competing with the Tempo Storm Meta Snapshot. And HS Replay was barely a thing. And now, even with all the data in the world, HSR can't keep up. The meta keeps changing every single day. It's one of the best set launches I can ever remember, and one of the most fun set launches I can remember. Do you all agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Yes,
I said
definitely.
it right away that this is my favorite set.
You didn't sleep the first
Not
day.
even close.
You pulled an all-nighter.
Yeah, I didn't. Oh, because I was having too much fun. Probably within the first 3 days, I was like playing Hearthstone more than I was doing other things
Yeah, I believe
combined.
that'll happen. Y'all want to go play more Hearthstone?
I mean, I do, but I don't know.
Show's at 2
Talking
hours.
about Hearth- It is at 2 hours. Yeah.
We're gonna wrap up here, but we have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out the thanks section on the website at coinconcede.com. You can also find our contact info, our show notes, and our Patreon information. You can monetarily support our show at patreon.com/coinconcede. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.coinconcede.com. Join our community chats and our Discord at discord.coinconcede.com. Right into our email at coinconcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at coinconcede. Like, share, and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/coinconcede. If you like some CC swag, head over to our shop at shop.coinconcede.com. Big thanks to our producers, Number Theory, Itinerant Wizard, Tony S, TK, and Karhu, and big thanks to Level 69 Hitmonchan for the bits during the show. Coin Concedes. Bodicus, hit me.
All right, I want to do a coin concede again to Kresh and also to Enthralamond. Had a coaching session scheduled with Kresh earlier this week, and I was just like, I just was not feeling Hearthstone, and so I was like, hey, look, I really want you to have a great coaching session, and I don't think I'm going to be able to provide that for you, so would it be all right if I asked Enthralamond? And Enthralamond was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And so yeah, big thanks to him for taking over that coaching session, and also like Enthralamond had sent me replays of the deck that Kresh wanted to play already, so I was like, this ends up working out really well, and I just appreciate that he was able to take that over for me. So if you haven't requested Enthralamond, he's super, super good, and definitely worth getting a coaching session from. So yeah, shout out to him, and shout out to Kresh for being flexible.
For two very good people. Edelweiss, who you got?
Yeah, for me, it's pretty simple. Just to Rachel for being a real champ through this tough week with the car accident and everything. She's okay, but she handled it very well, which I know I don't do so great with car accidents. And then just to the Great British Baking Show for being a nice, safe place in tough times. It's a really nice thing to be able to watch, and just sort of like everyone's nice to each other, and it's delicious pastries being made and discussed. I love it. So
Great. Now I'm hungry. Thanks, Edelweiss. So I got some coin conceits here. Ego Waffle made partner. Congrats, Ego. Tim Clark over at PC Gamer wrote an article on which cards might be nerfed and tagged me for feedback, which is weird. Not that I would give feedback when tagged. That's not the weird part. The weird part is that somebody actually wanted that written down in a place that was important. So thanks, Tim. I appreciate that. Glad to sound off. And I, of course, took the opportunity and took as much advantage of it as I could by, instead of responding with a tweet, I took a picture of a notepad essay, and he posted entirely in the article. Yes, I know. I cannot contain myself. What can I say? By the way, the nerfs that I think will happen, I now am even shorter on them. I think it's just Twilight Runner to draw one card. There are other nerfs that they might make for play patterns, but as far as balance goes, I think the only thing that needs to be changed for balance is Twilight Runner draw one card. I wouldn't change anything else right now. For longer term format health, Tortolan Pilgrim, just nerf Turtle Mage. It doesn't need to exist. I get that it's cool for now. Let it happen for a week and then take it away. Maybe pull Kel to 5. J-Bar is going to get changed at some point. I don't know if it needs to happen right away. Secret Passage is probably not going to survive, but I don't know if it needs to happen right away. Paladin, it might be a little too good. You might need to touch First Day of School or Revert Aldor or something. But also it keeps getting beaten by the decks that are coming around, so I don't know if you need to change it. But these are all small things that don't need to happen right away. If they change nothing for this format for another month, I think it would still be fine. But Druid could use a play pattern adjustment. And if you nuke Turtle Mage, you will not get tweets at you from players asking why their board is frozen every single turn. So probably worth doing. I'd like to actually anti-coin concede to myself from 3 years ago. This is something I was going to bring up in Life Ladder, but I saved it to the end of the show. So my co-hosts, you may notice, usually my mic is here on the right side, on my left hand, which is the left side of the camera here. And my air conditioner is to my right. And since the day I moved in, I pointed my microphone in that direction and then would turn off my air conditioner during the show because it was too loud. And over this past weekend, I took 4 1/4 minutes and I moved my mic so that it was pointing away from my air conditioner. And I have left it on this entire time and you can't hear it. So, me from 3 years ago, you dumb. And I'd like to document that here.
Wow.
It was a revelation that maybe if my mic didn't point at my air conditioner, that it wouldn't be in the recording. So it's a crisp 78 degrees in here. I feel fantastic. And also,
I'm proud of you, Hat.
yes, thank you. It was. I can't even hate on you for being a Shaman main. For as long as you've liked Shaman, I have liked hearing my own air conditioner on my recording, and it is an even worse decision. And finally, coin concede to Twitter, because, hey, Twitter, you're great. I went back to work today and was pretty in my own head about it last night, and still kind of am, but of course the show always makes me feel better because hanging out with my friends, both my co-hosts, who are amazing friends, and also all of you in the chat really makes me feel better, but Twitter was very, very supportive, as I found it to usually be, and I can't thank you all enough for helping me along in this journey. I talked to my wife, and we agreed we both want me to keep streaming and making content however we can. We're going to find some time. We're going to find a way for it to happen because it's been really special since this whole COVID thing has started. It's really given me something to look forward to each day, even though I'm working in industry and living in a city where things didn't look so great for a pretty long time there, and they're still not necessarily on the up and up, but everyone has been really incredible, and so I'm going to find a way to keep making content and to keep connecting with you all. Stream schedule will have to change, but it's important to me, and I can't thank all of you enough, to everyone that's listening, to everyone that's tuned in, to everyone that's tweeted. It means a lot, and so thank you for helping to keep me going. So that's going to be our show this week. So keep calm and slam J-Bar on 5. And if you see us on ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
Very well.
All right, I'll drop that in post. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.